Hi, I'm Mark of the Crown and Caliber, and welcome to Hidden Gems. There are watches that are clean, simple, and you know what they are immediately, like the Rolex Oyster Perpetual. Three-hand watch, clean, simple, you know what it is. Then there are watches that are on the opposite side, the extreme watches that try and tell time differently, that look different, the Urwerk, the Resonance of the world. And then there's the Iceberg Watch, that on the surface, there's a little bit going on, looks relatively simple, but underneath there is so much more. And this watch is one of those. It's the Jaeger LeCoultre AMVOX 7 for Aston Martin. So let's get into it. The JLC AMVOX for Aston Martin. Let's start with co-branding. Co-branded watches sometimes work very well, and there at times becomes a collector's market for them. Think of the Tiffany & Co. co-branded Patek Philippe's or even Rolex Domino's watch that's become very popular. Those do very well, and there are plenty of others that may not reach that level for whatever reason, but it's a strong tradition in the watch market to have co-branded watches. Jaeger LeCoultre and Aston Martin's co-branding actually goes back to the 1930s when the Aston Martin Le Mans car actually had a Jaeger pre-LeCoultre speedometer in it. And as Aston Martin's gone through the years, they've had different clock makers in their dashboards. They've had Jaeger LeCoultre, they had Smith for a while, today they have Richard Mille. But when the AMVOX line was made between 2005 and 2012, it was Jaeger LeCoultre on the dashboard. And they came up with some really interesting co-branded watches. And I mean that in a very good way. They actually pushed the boundaries of watchmaking for no other reason because they had an opportunity to do so. There's early versions of the watch that actually opened the doors for Aston Martins from the watch, a mechanical watch with a transponder in it. It was the 1%ers or hedge fund managers' Breitling emergency. And this watch though is the one that pushes the limits. It's the AMVOX 7, the final one in the release. Let's talk about what makes this an Iceberg watch. It's a JLC, and JLC means it's a very well-made watch, it's respected, it's probably gonna have their own movement in it because first things first, they're a movement maker. And this is where they really show off that movement making ability. Start of the line in 2005, they put in their very first automatic winding chronograph. I know that's kind of been a theme within Hidden Gems with the automatic winding chronograph and how important it is, but I think this hits it home yet again. JLC has made 1,250 different movements. They have made minute repeaters upon minute repeaters, dozens of them for themselves and for others. They've made tourbillons that are gyro tourbillons and everything else. They have pushed the limit of all of those complications, and it still took until 2005 for them to make their own automatic chronograph. And so when JLC came out with their automatic winding chronograph, they did put it in other lines, but they put it the same year in the AMVOX line. Let's be honest, an automatic winding chronograph is second only to a minute repeater in complication. And you don't see many of those, especially for less than $10,000 or $100,000. Minute repeaters, you'll know, cost a pretty penny. And we've gotten spoiled with automatic chronographs for how often we see them and don't really appreciate all that goes into making them. The other thing we're used to in chronographs and kind of gotten spoiled with is the pushers. You know how they work. They're on every chronograph. So take a second to look at this one. There is no pusher in the crown. It is not a mono pusher. So what JLC did is they took the entire case and made it the button. You push down on the 12 o'clock part and the whole case rocks to start and stop. And push down on the 6 o'clock and the whole case rocks to reset. Because you're able to actually put more leverage on the watch, it becomes very easy to start and stop it. It's a very satisfying click when the chronograph starts. It's a mechanism that no one else uses, no one else has ever used. I'm hoping that JLC uses it in the future. It's novel, but works. It's novel not just for novelty's sake, it really is a great way to run a chronograph. And it's fun to play with, to be perfectly honest. I probably sat here for 10 minutes just starting, stopping, or resetting this thing because it is fun to come across something new. You never come across something new in watchmaking that surprises you. When you first come across this watch, it's like, oh cool, JLC. But then you see it's a chronograph. Where are the buttons? Then you finally figure out how to start and stop it, and it's like a kid with a new toy. You want to sit here, start, stop, and play with it. There's of course then accidentally hitting the crystal and starting the chronograph. It actually has on the 9 o'clock side a lock with 3 different positions. You have the choice of having it wide open and just being able to start and stop and however you want. It goes to full lock that prevents you from setting the chronograph in any way. Or you have a half lock, which allows you to start and stop, but not reset the chronograph. So you actually have a plethora of choices for what you want to do with the chronograph, whether you just want to be able to time something, stop it, write it down, whether you don't want to use it at all, or go nuts, play with the chronograph. You have a nice, easy sliding lock that works very well, very intuitive. Now to go even deeper in the Iceberg, because as cool as that chronograph is, it is very specific to a chronograph. But the strap change system on this is something that I wish every single watch had. I wish every watch I ever came across had. It allows for a quick change of any strap that uses a spring bar system. And that is 99% of all straps. Almost everything we use in straps comes with a spring bar that attaches to the lugs. If it's a little older and has a pierced lug, you can easily push the spring bar from the outside. But most don't have that anymore, and we have to use a spring bar tool in order to kind of get between the strap and the lug, hope we don't scratch the lug, and it takes a bit of practice. Around here, we give it to the watchmakers in order to do that. We want the practiced, experienced hands to do that so we don't scratch anything. It's something that can be a worry for some of us at home. Instead, JLC created a button on the edge of the case that you push in, it moves part of the lug out of the way, and the strap just comes out. Move it back in, put the strap with the spring bar back in. That's it. It takes 2 seconds, works on every single strap with a spring bar, no problem. I know it adds a little thickness to the case, but it works here and there's no problem with it. And this is a large movement. I love it. I would buy a watch just for that strap changing system because I like changing straps and it's such a pleasure to use. And with that, it has one last thing that's kind of cool. The power reserve actually looks like a fuel gauge. So as you wind it up, it has 2 red bars that go from literally it says E for empty to half to full power. So it's a little bit of a more of the car theme with it. It brings it back around to remember like, yeah, this is a co-brand, but it's so much more. This watch is not just an Aston Martin JLC. This watch is JLC showing off what they can do and why they get the name the watchmaker's watchmaker. They get the chance to play and they do so. They create a new way to use the movement, a new way to change the strap system. Things that you just don't see from anyone else. And this watch has it all together. And that's what makes the Jaeger LeCoultre AMVOX 7 a hidden gem. Hope you enjoyed learning about the many things that JLC did with this watch. If there's another watch out there you think has some interesting mechanisms to it, let us know in the comments. See you next time on Hidden Gems.